Hey there, thrill seekers and curious minds. Welcome to my channel where I'm your devil's advocate, challenging the norms and pushing boundaries. I'm the advocate, and if you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and a little bit of daring fun, you're in the right place. Life is too short to play it safe. Here, we dive into the exhilarating, the controversial, and the downright daring. From extreme sports to bold discussions, I'll inspire you to embrace your inner daredevil and take those leaps of faith, both literally and figuratively. Every time we meet, we'll explore what it means to live life on the edge, because greatness doesn't come from comfort zones. I would always challenge your line of thoughts and provides you with options for you to decide. Listening to me would help you look at life in a different perspective. Welcome to today's episode where we dive into the contentious debate surrounding cultural appropriation and appreciation. This discussion is crucial in our increasingly interconnected world, but we'll be taking a devil's advocate perspective. Our goal is to challenge the prevailing narratives and explore the complexities of this topic. Cultural appropriation isn't a new phenomenon. It has occurred throughout human history. From the Silk Road facilitating trade and cultural exchange between Asia and Europe, to the colonial encounters that led to the blending of cultures, appropriation has often been a byproduct of interaction. During the age of colonialism, Western powers often appropriated elements of the cultures they encountered. This included art, language, and religious practices. While some argue this was a form of exploitation, others view it as a form of appreciation, where elements were adopted and adapted, resulting in new cultural expressions. For instance, British colonizers in North America took Native American tribal symbols, clothing styles, and practices, often stripping them of their original meanings. This appropriation was marked by a lack of respect for the cultural significance and spiritual meanings behind these elements. The imposition of European culture often led to the marginalization and erasure of indigenous identities, resulting in long-lasting impacts that are still felt today. The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural movement in the 1920s that celebrated African American culture through literature, music, and art. While it was a period of cultural appreciation and pride within the Black community, it also faced appropriation from white artists and audiences who took elements of Black culture, such as jazz and blues, and commercialized them. For example, white musicians like Benny Goodman became famous for playing jazz, often without acknowledging its Black origins or the struggles associated with its cultural significance. Another classical example, the fashion industry. Native American symbols and attire have often been appropriated without understanding their cultural significance. For instance, in 2012, designer Marc Jacobs featured models wearing feathered headdresses during a runway show, which sparked backlash for trivializing a sacred Native American symbol. Such appropriation often strips these symbols of their spiritual meanings, leading to commodification and misrepresentation of Native cultures. Also, the use of African masks in Western art. Early 20th century, Western artists like Pablo Picasso and André Derain were influenced by African art, particularly masks and sculptures. This fascination led to the incorporation of African aesthetic elements into modern art styles such as Cubism. While this can be seen as appreciation of African artistic traditions, it also raised concerns about appropriation, as these artists often lacked an understanding of the cultural contexts and meanings behind the artworks they were inspired by, leading to a reduction of rich cultural artifacts into mere artistic trends. The adoption of Hindu deities in Western pop culture. In recent decades, figures like Madonna and Lady Gaga have drawn inspiration from Hindu symbols and deities in their music and performances. For example, Madonna's Like a Prayer video featured imagery of Hindu deities, which was seen by some as a superficial appropriation of sacred symbols. Critics argue that such uses can dilute the spiritual significance of these elements and reduce them to aesthetic choices in pop culture, often without proper context or respect for the beliefs they represent. So, what exactly is cultural appropriation? Generally, it is adoption of elements of one culture by members of another culture, often without permission, and typically by those in a position of power. In contrast, cultural appreciation involves a respectful engagement with another culture, recognizing its origins and significance. However, as devil's advocate, here's the devil's advocate point. Isn't cultural exchange an inherent part of human existence? Throughout history, cultures have borrowed from one another, creating rich tapestries of shared human experience. When does borrowing become appropriation, and who gets to decide? Let's explore the positive aspects of cultural appreciation. Many artists, chefs, and musicians draw inspiration from diverse cultures, leading to innovative creations. Think of fusion cuisines or cross-genre music that brings together different traditions, enriching our cultural landscape. When I incorporate elements from different cultures, it's out of respect and admiration. I want to honor those traditions while creating something new. From this perspective, cultural exchange can foster understanding and unity among diverse groups. It breaks down barriers and promotes dialogue, which is essential in today's global society. However, the risks associated with cultural appropriation cannot be overlooked. Critics argue that when elements of marginalized cultures are appropriated by those in power, it can lead to erasure of the original context and significance. This can perpetuate stereotypes and commodify cultural symbols. Yet, the backlash against celebrities for cultural appropriation often oversimplifies these complex interactions. A nuanced understanding is necessary to differentiate between harmful appropriation and respectful appreciation. Current events, social media trends, and cultural discussions. As we move forward, the conversation around cultural appropriation and appreciation continues to evolve. Social media amplifies both the celebration of cultural diversity and the critique of appropriation, leading to greater awareness but also heightened tensions. We're seeing more calls for accountability and respect in cultural exchanges, which is a positive step. But it requires ongoing dialogue and education, diverse groups engaging in cultural activities, fostering understanding. In conclusion, cultural appropriation versus appreciation is complex and multifaceted. While there are valid concerns about exploitation and respect, we should also recognize the potential for cultural exchange to enrich our lives. As we continue to navigate these issues, let's strive for understanding and appreciation, recognizing that our shared humanity is woven through the rich diversity of our cultures. Remember, I am the devil's advocate.